I cut my London project short and returned to the States, not telling anyone. I'd planned to pick up my younger sister, Summer, from school and surprise her. But just as I reached the back entrance of the auditorium, I heard some students laughing. Summer has no shame, does she? The housekeeper's daughter. Only here because the Sterlings pay for her, always acting so superior. Seriously, Pearl is so sweet. Her family takes her in, and she's totally ungrateful. I heard Summer even tried to steal Pearl's spot for the competition. Those charity cases always have some kind of agenda. Summer is my biological sister. Pearl is my family's housekeeper's daughter. And now, the entire school thought Pearl was the Sterling heir, and Summer was a charity case. I pulled out my phone and called a well-known lawyer. I need you to look into something for me. I want to know how my sister's identity was stolen these past few years I've been away. I looked at the message my sister had sent me 2 hours ago. Aubrey, there's a charity event at school today. I'm going on stage to share my volunteer experience. I told the driver to change course to Sterling Heights Academy. Sterling Heights was the most exclusive private school in the city. When our parents first enrolled Summer, they specifically arranged for privacy protection. Only the principal's office and the security department knew her true family background. My dad said kids shouldn't be defined by their family's wealth. My mom said it was safer to keep a low profile. The event inside had just ended, and students were leaving in small groups. A few girls were chatting. The way Summer was standing on stage just now, I swear. Does she really think she's one of the Sterlings? What's Sterling? Pearl herself said her mom used to work for the Sterlings, and the family was kind enough to let Summer study here. Pearl is truly too kind. If my family had someone like that, they'd be out the door. Another girl scoffed. And she dresses so plainly, playing innocent. If it wasn't for the Sterlings, how would she even get into Sterling Heights? Just then, a girl in a white jacket emerged from the auditorium. Someone handed her a hot drink. Pearl, you spoke so well earlier. She smiled gently. Oh, not really. I just said a few words on behalf of our family foundation. You're too modest. The Sterlings are always doing charity work. No wonder you're so well-mannered. She lowered her eyes, her voice soft. Don't say that. Summer might get upset if she hears it. The expressions on everyone's faces immediately shifted. What's she got to be upset about? Your family's already done so much for her. Exactly, and she always gives you attitude. Pearl, you're just too easy to push around. Pearl, Mrs. Miller's daughter. When she was little, she lived with Mrs. Miller in the guest house on the Sterling property. My sister was soft-hearted and shared everything with her. I remember when she first came to the Sterlings, she was timidly hiding behind Mrs. Miller, calling me Aubrey. I found Summer in a corner. She was coming out of a different side door, head bowed. I didn't go over immediately. Summer would definitely panic if she saw me. She hated causing trouble for the family more than anything. I turned and walked to the end of the hallway, stopping a boy who was alone. Excuse me, I'm visiting from another school. I just heard you mention the Sterling Foundation. Is that Pearl's family's foundation? The boy glanced at me. Perhaps seeing I wasn't a teacher or a parent, his tone relaxed considerably. Yeah, she's like the Sterling's younger daughter, right? I smiled. Are you sure? Why wouldn't I be sure? He pointed to the parking area downstairs. She comes here every day in the Sterling's car. Her inns is full of their mansion, parties, drivers, butlers, everything. He paused, then lowered his voice. But she's pretty low-key, never explicitly says anything. If people call her Miss Sterling, she'll even say, don't be silly. What about Summer? The boy's expression became subtle. Oh, her? I heard Pearl's family sponsors her. Pearl is super nice and always looks out for her. But Summer's pretty stubborn, always acting like someone owes her something. Back in the car, I called my assistant, Jordan. I need you to look up Pearl's social media accounts for the past 3 years, her school forum posts, vehicle access records, and her mother, Mrs. Miller's, usage records for permissions within our home. Jordan paused. Is something wrong? I looked out the car window. Rainwater slid down the glass. At the auditorium entrance, Summer stood alone under an umbrella. Pearl was surrounded by a group of students, getting into the car our family sent. That car was supposed to pick up Summer today. My voice turned cold. Nothing's wrong. Someone's just gotten too comfortable. Pearl was clever. She never explicitly stated anything. She rode in our family car to school. When classmates asked, "Is that your family car?" she'd smile and reply, "The driver just happened to be passing by today." Everyone then assumed it was her car. She wore Summer's old cashmere jacket, one Summer had given her. She'd lower her head and adjust the cuffs. My mom always complains my closet is a mess and says if I don't wear things, I should donate them. She'd take photos in the Sterling greenhouse. The caption would read, "Mom rushing me home for dinner." The photo would intentionally show a corner of the dining room's crystal chandelier. That chandelier was a one-of-a-kind piece my mom had brought back from Italy. She attended the Sterling Charity Gala. Even though Mrs. Miller only entered with the domestic staff, Pearl found opportunities to stand nearby for photos. The edge of the picture would conveniently show the backs of my dad and the board members talking. Her caption, "Dragged to another one of these boring adult meetings." The next morning, Jordan sent me the files. I sat in the hotel study, flipping through page after page. On the Sterling Heights forum, an anonymous account had been posting since freshman year. "Isn't that sponsored girl too fake? Just because she lives near her benefactors, she thinks she's family? Let's expose the girl who got into Sterling Heights on someone else's dime and then bites the hand that feeds her." The posts didn't name anyone directly, but each time, they'd feature a side profile of Summer, her backpack, or her desk. In the comments, someone would ask if it was Summer. The original poster would reply, "I didn't say it was IYKYK." The phone number registered to that account had the same last digits as Pearl's. There were also class group chat screenshots. Someone wrote, "Pearl, why is your family still sponsoring Summer? She doesn't seem very grateful." Pearl posted a "woe is me" emoji. "Don't say that. Summer isn't a bad person, just a little sensitive. She's been close with us since childhood. Maybe she just wants to fit in too much. My mom always says we should be more accommodating with her." I scrolled to the end and saw Summer's competition records. Last year, for the National Biology Modeling Competition, Summer had spent 3 months organizing her notes, which she lent to Pearl to copy. Later, Pearl used those notes to explain problems in class. Classmates praised her for being brilliant. She'd smile and say, "It's nothing. Summer struggles with the basics, so I often tutor her, and I just happened to organize some notes for her." That year, Summer had clearly won the preliminary round at school. But the final recommendation spot went to Pearl. The reason given, she had better overall influence and was more suitable to represent the school. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I called Summer's homeroom teacher. "Who is this?" "Hello, I'm Summer's older sister. I'd like to understand how she's doing at school." The teacher's voice paused for a few seconds, then warmed. "Oh, Summer. Her grades are good, but her personality is a bit introverted. We've been trying to guide her, teaching her to be grateful and not always to compete with Pearl." I let out a small laugh. "Compete? Yes," she sighed. "Pearl's family has helped her a lot, but Summer sometimes doesn't understand boundaries. For example, with competitions and club resources, she always feels she deserves the best." "Why shouldn't she deserve the best?" My question stunned the teacher. "That's not what I mean. It's just that her family situation is unique, and the school certainly hopes she'll be more stable. Pearl, after all..." She suddenly stopped. I finished her sentence for her. "After all, she seems more like a Sterling child, right?" Silence on the other end of the line. I hung up. Half an hour later, I went to the school apartment where Summer lived. To save her the commute, our parents had arranged a small apartment for her near the school, registered under the foundation's name. This was another one of our protective measures. But in the mouths of her classmates, it had become the dorm provided by the Sterlings for a charity student. The moment the door opened, Summer froze. "Aubrey?" Her eyes immediately reddened. But then, she anxiously looked behind me. "Why are you back? Do Mom and Dad know? Did you go to school? Did anyone see you?" My heart ached, and I hugged her tight. "Summer, tell me first, what are you so afraid of?" She stiffened. After a long moment, she whispered, "I'm not afraid." I released her and looked into her eyes. "Then tell me, why is Pearl riding in our family's car?" Her face instantly went pale. "Aubrey, why was your competition spot taken by her? Why does the whole school say you're the housekeeper's daughter?" Her lips trembled, and tears finally fell. I tried to explain, but no one believed me. Summer's explanation was very jumbled. When they first started high school, she and Pearl still went to school together. Mrs. Miller had been working for the Sterlings for 10 years then. My mom, appreciating her dedication and feeling for her raising a daughter alone, arranged for Pearl to transfer to Sterling Heights through a foundation program. Tuition, uniforms, and books, the Sterlings covered everything. Summer was happy at first. She felt that having someone she knew at school would at least keep her from being lonely. Later, when classmates asked about their relationship, before Summer could speak, Pearl smiled and said, "We grew up together, almost like family." That sentence wasn't technically wrong, but those who heard it filled in the blanks themselves. The first time a classmate called her Miss Sterling, she didn't deny it. She just shyly said, "Oh, don't say that. Summer will be embarrassed." From then on, the embarrassed one became Summer. Summer wanted to explain. Pearl, in front of others, would grab her hand, her eyes welling up. Summer, are you upset that I shouldn't be at Sterling Heights with you? I know you don't like everyone comparing us. People nearby would immediately chime in. Summer, don't be so sensitive. Pearl didn't say anything bad. Someone's looking out for you, and you're giving them attitude? Summer argued a few times. Each time, Pearl cried. Over time, everyone came to believe that Summer was the jealous, difficult, resentful one. After listening, I only asked one question. Why didn't you tell me? Summer kept her head down. You were busy with the foundation project overseas then, and Mom and Dad were handling the group merger. I thought it was just a misunderstanding among classmates, and it would blow over. What happened after that? She clutched the hem of her jacket. Later, Mrs. Miller spoke with me. That day, Mrs. Miller specifically came to the apartment to bring her soup. She sat on the sofa, sighing. Summer, I know you feel wronged, but Pearl isn't having it easy either. She never had a father, and she's always been insecure. People only started respecting her when they mistakenly thought she was a Sterling. Summer said, but they're saying awful things about me. Mrs. Miller held her hand. You've always been the most sensible, Summer. You have a mom, a dad, and a sister who love you. What does Pearl have? She's just trying to catch a little break, not steal anything from you. Summer was silent. Mrs. Miller continued, besides, your family always asks to keep things low-key. If you really make a fuss, wouldn't you be causing trouble for Mr. and Mrs. Sterling? Summer was most afraid of causing trouble for our family, so she started to endure it. Listening to her, my chest felt like it had a rock pressing down on it. When Summer finished speaking, her voice was very soft. Aubrey, am I useless? I reached out and brushed the stray hairs from her forehead. The useless one isn't you, it's me. If I had asked earlier, if I hadn't thought keeping a low profile was the best protection, my sister wouldn't have been trapped in this web of rumors for so long. That evening, I returned to the Sterling mansion. Mrs. Miller wasn't in the main house. Last year, she'd been moved to manage the guest house storage, but her access permissions hadn't been fully revoked. I asked Mr. Adams, the butler, to pull up the records from the past 3 years. His face grew increasingly grim. Miss Aubrey, I was negligent. I didn't scold him. He wasn't the only one who had been negligent. The Sterling family was too accustomed to treating Mrs. Miller as an old family retainer. Old family retainer, sometimes, that's just an open door for an ungrateful opportunist. At 1 a.m., Jordan sent me a new set of documents. Pearl had updated her ins that night. The photo showed her sitting in the front row of the Sterling Heights auditorium. Caption: kindness needs to be cherished. See you then. Beneath it, someone commented, Pearl, you'll definitely be on stage for the foundation open house, right? She replied, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. I looked at the line of text and smiled. She had no idea. On the day of the foundation open house, I had a big surprise waiting for her. The next morning, I contacted Principal Davies of Sterling Heights. Principal Davies, this is Aubrey Sterling. The phone line was noticeably silent for a few seconds, then his tone became enthusiastic. Miss Sterling, you're back in the States? Just got back. I got straight to the point. I heard your school has a foundation open house next week. I'd like to combine the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation's Charity Open Day segment with yours on the same day. All faculty and students will attend, and the theme will be educational equity and the boundaries of sponsorship. The principal immediately agreed. I added, I'll be announcing a new round of scholarship recipients and also clarifying past sponsorship cases. Principal Davies chuckled, excellent. That will be a wonderful educational experience for the students. After hanging up, I had Mr. Henderson, my lawyer, contact the school's legal department to submit a partial disclosure authorization. Summer's identity information could be disclosed up to the level of kinship. Security details would remain private. Pearl's sponsorship records could also be made public, because when she enrolled, she signed a foundation sponsorship agreement which explicitly stated, do not impersonate the sponsor for profit, and do not spread false information that damages the reputation of the sponsor or associated parties. That clause was originally just boilerplate. Now it would come in handy. That afternoon, Mrs. Miller came to find me. She stood at the living room entrance, carrying a thermos, her face still bearing that meek smile. Miss Aubrey, you're back and didn't say anything? I made your favorite soup. I stayed seated on the sofa. Mrs. Miller, you're very well informed. Her smile stiffened slightly. Everyone in the family is happy, you know. I looked at her. Is Pearl doing well at Sterling Heights? Her eyes flickered. Very well, thanks to the Sterling family's care. Otherwise, my daughter and I wouldn't be where we are today. Is that so? I placed my phone on the table. On the screen was that photo from Pearl Zinn's. Mrs. Miller's face subtly changed when she saw it. I asked, "Are you aware that she's been mistaken for the younger Sterling daughter at school?" Mrs. Miller immediately sighed. "Miss Aubrey, I've tried to talk to her about it. But she's just a child. Vanity is natural. Besides, she never explicitly said she was a Sterling. It was all just a misunderstanding by her classmates." And Summer being called the housekeeper's daughter, that was also a misunderstanding? She fell silent. After a while, she said softly, "Summer has a gentle nature and doesn't like to explain. In a few years, when everyone graduates, no one will remember anyway." I let out a sarcastic laugh. "So you're telling them to wait it out until graduation?" Mrs. Miller's eyes welled up. "Miss Aubrey, I've been with this Sterling family for so many years. I've given so many years to this family. Pearl never had a father. She's always been looked down upon. She just wanted a little respect. Is it really so hard for your family, who is everything, to grant her a little dignity?" I stood up. "Dignity isn't something someone else grants you. And stolen dignity isn't dignity at all." Her face instantly went pale. I walked up to her. "Mrs. Miller, I'm giving you one chance. By tomorrow, have Pearl publicly clarify and apologize to Summer. Return what needs to be returned, delete what needs to be deleted." Mrs. Miller bit her lip. "Miss Aubrey, does it have to be this way? She's still a child. She's 3 months older than Summer." Mrs. Miller was speechless. I continued, "And you don't need to cover for her. The forum account, vehicle records, and guest house inventory records, I have them all." The thermos in her hand trembled, spilling a few drops of soup. "Miss Aubrey, tomorrow at 9 a.m. I turned. "After that, the offer expires." Mrs. Miller didn't agree. Half an hour after she left, Pearl posted a new story. "Some people are born with everything, yet they try to snatch away even a tiny chance for someone else to find a glimmer of light." The accompanying image was a black background. Underneath, classmates quickly offered comfort. "Don't be sad, Pearl. Is that certain someone acting up again? She's truly disgusting, accepting her family's help and still bullying you." I saved the screenshot and sent it to Mr. Henderson. "Add this to the evidence package." The 9 a.m. deadline came and went without a word from Mrs. Miller or Pearl. Instead of an apology, Pearl's social media account went into overdrive. By noon, she had posted a series of cryptic, melancholic updates, a photo of a single teacup on a marble balcony, captioned, "Some storms are meant to test our endurance," a picture of a handwritten study plan with the note, "No matter how hard others try to erase my efforts, I will keep shining." Her comment section had turned into a mob targeting Summer. "Pearl, don't let that charity student bully you. She's just bitter because her family relies on handouts while yours actually builds things. We all know who truly belongs at Sterling Heights. Stay strong, Pearl." I sat in the study of the Sterling family estate, watching the live updates on my laptop screen. Beside me, Mr. Henderson, our lead legal counsel, was calmly stamping official letters of notice, while Jordan, my chief assistant, organized 3 thick leather-bound binders full of hard evidence. "Miss Sterling," Henderson said, setting his fountain pen down with a quiet click, "the cease and desist orders are ready. The defamation lawsuits against the platform hosting the anonymous forum are prepared, along with subpoenas for the user logs. Regarding Mrs. Miller, the evidence of embezzlement, unauthorized use of estate assets, and breach of non-disclosure agreements is airtight." "Good," I said, my gaze fixed on a screenshot of Pearl wearing my mother's vintage Cartier brooch, a piece that had been logged as under maintenance in the guest house inventory records 6 months ago. "Hold off on serving them until tomorrow morning. I want everything delivered in person." "At the school?" Jordan asked. "On stage," I corrected coldly. "Pearl built her delicate little palace out of lies in front of the entire student body. It's only polite that I tear it down in the exact same setting." That afternoon, I drove back to Summer's small apartment. When I opened the door, she was sitting at her desk, staring blankly at her open biology textbook. On the corner of her desk sat a plastic container of cold soup, the same soup Mrs. Miller had brought over the night before. I walked over, picked up the container, and tossed it straight into the trash can. Summer startled, looking up at me with wide, uncertain eyes. "Aubrey, don't eat anything she gives you," I said gently, sitting beside her and pulling her hands into mine. Her fingers were freezing. "Summer, look at me." She hesitated before meeting my eyes. "Tomorrow is the Sterling Heights Foundation open house," I said softly.
You
"Are going to wear the dress Mom designed for your 16th birthday. You are going to walk into that auditorium with your head held high. Aubrey, the whole school thinks." Her voice cracked, a knot of old anxiety tightening in her throat. "They think I'm a beggar. If I suddenly tell them who I am, they'll just say I bought my way out of it, or that I'm lying to save face." "You won't have to say a single word," I replied, smoothing down her hair.
Your
"Big sister is back. Tomorrow you just sit back and watch." A tiny flicker of hope sparked in her pale eyes, but it was quickly shadowed by worry. "What about Mrs. Miller? She raised me alongside Pearl when we were small. Mom always said we owe her for taking care of the house for so long. Gratitude is for those who do their duty with integrity, Summer," I said, my tone hardening slightly. "It is not a blank check for snakes to bite the hand that feeds them. Mrs. Miller didn't just take our salary, she took your dignity and gave it to her daughter. That debt is coming due tomorrow." The morning of the open house arrived under a blanket of heavy, gray sky. Sterling Heights Academy was buzzing with unusual excitement. Black town cars and luxury SUVs lined the cobblestone drive leading to the main auditorium. Flags bearing the school's crest and the emblem of the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation fluttered in the crisp autumn breeze. In the hallway outside the auditorium, students gathered in tight clusters, dressed in their crisp formal uniforms. Pearl stood near the center of the foyer, surrounded by a group of admiring girls and several members of the student council. She was wearing a tailored, white tweed jacket, her hair styled in soft, natural waves. On her wrist glinted a diamond bracelet, another item quietly borrowed from the guest house safe. "Pearl, you look like a princess today," one girl gushed. "Is it true your family is funding the new science wing?" Pearl gave a soft, delicate laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear.
Oh,
"Please don't talk like that. My parents always say that wealth means nothing if you don't share it. The foundation is just doing what it ought to do." "You're so modest," a boy nearby said admiringly. "Unlike some people."
He
Pointedly glanced toward the side entrance, where Summer had just walked in. Summer was dressed impeccably in a dark navy silk dress under a tailored charcoal coat, classic, refined, and completely free of loud designer logos. Yet, as she walked past, whispers erupted like a dry brush fire. "Look at her, still trying to act all elegant. Did you see Pearl's post last night?" Summer was apparently harassing Pearl's family again, demanding more allowance. Seriously? Pearl's family already lets her live in that foundation apartment for free. She's totally ungrateful. Summer heard every word. Her steps faltered for a fraction of a second, but then she remembered my words from the night before. She took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and kept walking straight toward her seat in the middle section. Pearl watched her from afar, a subtle, triumphant smirk touching the corners of her lips. She leaned over to her friend and whispered, "Let her sit alone.
She's
just going through a sensitive phase."
Just then Ms.
Vance, Summer, and Pearl's homeroom teacher bustled over with a clipboard, her face flushed with excitement.
Pearl.
"Dear, the principal wants you backstage right away," Ms. Vance said, her voice dripping with warmth. "The representative from the Sterling Foundation has arrived early, and we want you to present the bouquet during the opening ceremony." Pearl's eyes lit up. "The representative? Is it someone from the core Sterling family?" "It must be." Ms. Vance clasped her hands together. "This is a huge honor."
Pearl.
"Make sure you represent our school well. As for the charity speech, I've adjusted the order. You will speak right after the principal." "Thank you, Ms. Vance," Pearl said sweetly, casting a subtle glance back at
Summer.
"What about Summer's speech?" She prepared notes on her volunteer work, too. Ms. Vance waved her hand dismissively, her tone turning cold. "Oh, we canceled her slot. With all these negative rumors surrounding her lately, having her on stage would reflect poorly on the school's image. We can't let a charity case ruin our relationship with the Sterling family." Pearl bit her lip to suppress a grin. "If you think that's best, Ms. Vance." At 10 a.m. sharp, the 2,000-seat grand auditorium was packed to
Capacity.
Students, faculty members, board directors, and prominent local media outlets sat in rows under the vaulted ceilings. On the front row sat the school board and Principal Davies, looking noticeably nervous. Sitting a few seats down was Mrs. Miller, dressed in an overly formal lace gown she had purchased specifically for today, trying her best to sit poised among the wealthy mothers of the elite students. The lights dimmed, and the spotlight focused on the center stage. Principal Davies walked up to the podium, clearing his throat into the microphone. "Welcome, esteemed guests, faculty, and students, to the annual Sterling Heights Foundation Open House," Davies announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "Today, we celebrate not only academic excellence, but the spirit of philanthropy that defines our institution. Today, we are deeply honored to welcome the executive leadership of the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation." The audience clapped politely. "Before we hear from our distinguished guest," Davies continued, smiling broadly, "toward the wings, we have a special presentation from a student who truly embodies the generous spirit of our foundation, Miss Pearl Miller." Thunderous applause broke out. Pearl stepped onto the stage under the bright lights, holding a mic with practiced grace. She bowed slightly, her expression modest yet radiant. "Thank you, Principal Davies, teachers, and fellow students," Pearl began, her voice smooth and carefully modulated. "Growing up under the guidance of the Sterling family's values, I have always believed that privilege is not a crown to wear, but a responsibility to bear." In the audience, girls nudged each other. Listen to her. Under the guidance of the Sterling family values, she's basically confirming it. Pearl continued, her eyes sweeping over the crowd, intentionally lingering on Summer, who sat quietly in the 10th row. "We have all seen people around us who struggle, who come from difficult backgrounds, and who sometimes lose their way due to envy or pride," Pearl said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. "My family has always tried to open our doors and our hearts to those in need, offering shelter, rides to school, and academic opportunities. Even when that kindness is met with misunderstanding or resentment, we choose forgiveness, because true charity expects nothing in return." A wave of murmurs rippled through the auditorium. Everyone knew who she was talking about. Heads turned to glare at Summer, eyes filled with disgust and
Disdain.
"She's literally calling Summer out. Pearl is way too nice. If I were her, I'd have kicked Summer out of the apartment long ago." Pearl smiled gently, lowering her head as if humbled by her own nobility. "Thank you all. May we all continue to walk in the light of the Sterling family's legacy." She bowed again, waiting for the standing ovation she felt she deserved. Instead, a sharp, clear voice echoed from the side of the stage through the secondary microphone, cutting through the applause like a razor through silk. "A very touching performance, Miss Miller. But I believe you forgot to mention one tiny detail." The auditorium fell dead silent. Pearl froze, her smile locking in place as she turned toward the wing of the
Stage.
I stepped out from behind the velvet curtain, wearing a tailored midnight black suit, my hair pinned back sharply. Beside me walked Mr. Henderson, holding a sleek leather briefcase, followed by two security guards in formal attire. Principal Davies stood up abruptly from his seat, his face pale. Miss Sterling." The title echoed through the loudspeakers. "Miss Sterling?" The students looked at each other in confusion. Who is that? Did the principal just call her Miss Sterling? Is she the real heiress? I walked steadily to the center of the stage, stopping right beside Pearl. Pearl instinctively took a step back, her complexion draining of color as her eyes locked onto mine. She recognized me instantly. "Aubrey," she stammered under her breath, her hand shaking as she held the microphone. I didn't even look at her. I reached out and calmly pulled the microphone from her hand. "Good morning, students, faculty, and members of the board," I said into the mic, my voice crisp, commanding, and perfectly poised. "I am Aubrey Sterling, Senior Vice President of the Sterling Group and Executive Director of the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation." A collective gasp rippled through the thousands of people in the audience. Mrs. Miller, sitting in the 3rd row, stood up frantically, her handbag slipping from her lap and crashing onto the floor. "Aubrey, what are you doing?" I turned my gaze slowly toward the crowd, letting the silence build until you could hear a pin drop. Today's event was meant to celebrate educational equity and the boundaries of sponsorship, I continued, my voice echoing off the high ceilings.
"And I think
Miss Pearl Miller just gave us a perfect case study on how those boundaries can be completely destroyed by boundless greed." "Miss Sterling." Ms. Vance rushed up to the edge of the stage, her forehead slick with sweat. "There must be a misunderstanding. Pearl is the representative Of your family's foundation. She. Ms. Vance, I interrupted, staring down at her with cold disdain.
As a
Homeroom teacher, your inability to distinguish between the employer and the servant's daughter is truly staggering. The auditorium exploded into chaos. What did she just say? Servant's daughter? Wait, Pearl is the servant's daughter? Pearl's eyes widened in horror. She reached out desperately to grab my arm. Aubrey, please don't. We can talk about this at home. Home, I scoffed, stepping away from her touch, as if dodging something dirty. You mean the guest house storage unit behind our garage where your mother lives? Pearl looked as if she had been struck by lightning. She staggered back, her knees trembling. I signaled to Jordan, who stood near the technical booth. Turn on the main projector, please. The massive digital screen behind the stage flickered to life. Instead of the school logo, the screen displayed a high-resolution legal document, the Sterling Foundation Educational Sponsorship Agreement, 2021. 4 years ago, I announced, pointing toward the screen, the Sterling family signed a charitable sponsorship agreement with Mrs. Mary Miller, our residential housekeeper. Under this agreement, the foundation agreed to fully cover the tuition, living expenses, and educational materials for her daughter, Pearl Miller, to attend Sterling Heights Academy. I clicked a remote in my hand.
The slide changed.
It showed the financial ledger of the foundation, alongside Mrs. Miller's signed receipts. The agreement explicitly noted that this was a nonprofit charitable grant. I
said.
Yet, over the past 3 years, Miss Pearl Miller has systematically led this school, its faculty, and its student body to believe that she was the Sterling heiress. That's not true. Pearl shrieked, her voice cracking as tears spilled down her
face.
I never said I was a Sterling. I never explicitly said it. You're framing me. You never explicitly said it? I smiled coldly. Let's test that theory. I clicked the remote again. The screen filled with a grid of Instagram posts, forum threads, and group chat screenshots. 1. Exhibit A, a photo of the Sterling family mansion's private dining room. Caption: Mom rushing me home for dinner. 2. Exhibit B, a photo of a limited edition Hermes bag. Caption: Another gift. From Dad, but it's really not my style. Audit notes showed the bag belonged to my mother and was reported missing from the main house walk-in closet 3 months ago. 3. Exhibit C, screenshots from the Sterling Heights anonymous forum under the handle at @realestate_observer. Over the past 2 years, this anonymous account posted 54 threads, targeting a specific student. I said, my tone growing darker with every word, calling her a freeloader, a parasite living off the Sterlings, and accusing her of stealing academic work. I clicked to the next slide. It showed an official police cyberforensics report, highlighted in bright yellow. The IP address, hardware ID, and registered phone number for @realestate_observer belonged to one device, I said, turning my eyes slowly onto
Pearl.
Your iPhone 14 Pro, Pearl. The crowd erupted once more. The students who had previously rallied around Pearl looked at her in absolute shock and disgust. Oh my God, she was the anonymous poster? She created a fake account to bully someone else while playing the victim. And those clothes she stole, them from the Sterlings? Pearl collapsed onto her knees on the stage, sobbing hysterically, covering her face with her hands. No, it wasn't like that. I just wanted people to respect me. Respect. I sneered. You don't earn respect by stealing another person's name and trampling on their kindness. I turned my back on Pearl and looked directly toward row 10. And now I would like to introduce the real younger daughter of the Sterling family. I held out my hand toward the middle of the auditorium. Summer, come up here. Every camera, every spotlight, and every eye in the entire auditorium swung instantly toward the 10th row. Summer stood up slowly. Without the weight of the rumors dragging her down, her poise was undeniable. Her posture was straight, her dark eyes calm and clear. As she walked down the carpeted aisle toward the stage, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Students who had snickered at her minutes ago scrambled to pull their feet back, lowering their heads in shame. Ms. Vance looked as if she was about to faint, leaning heavily against the podium for support. Summer walked up the steps, stepped onto the stage, and stood right beside me. I placed a hand on her shoulder, looking down at the principal and the board of directors. When my parents enrolled Summer at Sterling Heights, I said, my voice echoing with absolute authority, they chose to protect her privacy so she could experience a normal, grounded education. They taught her to be humble, to be kind, and never to use her family's wealth to look down on others. I glanced down at Pearl, who was shivering on the floor, her white jacket stained with tears and dust. Unfortunately, her humility was mistaken for weakness, I said. And our family's charity was taken as an invitation to leech. Mrs. Miller scrambled up onto the stage, completely ignoring the security guards, throwing herself onto her knees in front of me. Miss Aubrey,
Please.
I beg you, Mrs. Miller wailed, her hands clutching at the hem of my trousers. I was wrong. I was blind. Pearl is just a child. She made a mistake. Don't ruin her life. I've served your family for 15 years. I looked down at her with zero warmth in my eyes. 15 years, Mrs. Miller, I said quietly. And in those 15 years, my mother paid you 3 times the market rate, bought you a health insurance package, and offered your daughter a top-tier education. How did you repay us? I pointed at Summer. You gaslit my 16-year-old sister. You told her to endure the bullying, to give up her competition spots, to let your daughter steal her life, all so your daughter could satisfy her pathetic vanity. Mrs. Miller opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked at Summer, trying to reach for her foot. Summer, my dear, you know Mrs. Miller loved you. Summer took a step back, her eyes cold and clear. You didn't love me, Mrs. Miller. You just loved what my family could give you. Mr. Henderson stepped forward, opening his leather briefcase and pulling out 3 formal legal documents. He handed them down to Principal Davies and the school board. As legal counsel for the Sterling Group and the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation, I hereby issue the following actions, Henderson declared into a secondary microphone. 1. Immediate termination of Mrs. Mary Miller's employment contract, within eviction notice served for the guest house premises within 24
hours.
2. A formal lawsuit against Mrs. Mary Miller and Miss Pearl Miller for civil fraud, grand theft, involving over $150,000 worth of unreturned luxury goods and jewelry, and malicious defamation.
3.
An official demand to Sterling Heights Academy for a complete investigation into the academic misconduct regarding the national biology modeling competition, including the immediate restoration of Miss Summer Sterling's recommendation spot. 4. The immediate revocation of all foundation funding, scholarships, and enrollment privileges for Miss Pearl Miller at Sterling Heights Academy. Principal Davies' hand trembled so violently he could barely hold the paper. We will comply fully, Mr. Henderson. The board will initiate an immediate audit of the administration. He turned around and glared fiercely at Ms. Vance. Ms. Vance, you are suspended, effective immediately pending an internal investigation into student discrimination. Ms. Vance gasped, dropping her clipboard as her face turned ash gray. Pearl lifted her tear-streaked face, looking at the classmates who used to surround her with flattery. But now, all she saw were looks of disgust, mockery,
and disdain.
The boys who had defended her looked away in embarrassment. The girls who had praised her were busy deleting their social media posts with her. No, this can't be happening, Pearl whispered, collapsing completely into her mother's arms as security guards stepped forward to escort them both off the stage. The open house ended in a whirlwind of corporate restructurings and public apologies. Within 48 hours, Sterling Heights Academy issued an official, institution-wide apology to Summer Sterling, clearing her name completely. Ms. Vance was quietly dismissed from her teaching position, and the student council president, who had helped Pearl hide the competition notes, was stripped of his title. Mrs. Miller and Pearl packed their bags under the supervision of estate security and moved out of the guest house in disgrace. Facing massive legal suits and blacklisted from high society domestic work, Mrs. Miller was forced to sell their personal belongings to pay off the legal retainers. Pearl, expelled from Sterling Heights and unable to transfer to any other elite private school, was forced to enroll in a distant vocational school, her social media accounts permanently deleted under legal settlement terms. 2 weeks later, the crisp late autumn sunshine poured over the manicured lawn of the Sterling estate. I sat on the outdoor patio, drinking afternoon tea while reviewing the Overseas Foundation's quarterly reports. The patio glass door opened, and Summer walked out, holding a thick brown envelope. She was wearing her simple school uniform, her hair tied in a neat ponytail, a genuine, relaxed smile on her face. Aubrey, she said, setting the envelope on the marble table. What's this? I asked, setting down my teacup. The official acceptance letter for the National Biology Modeling Competition, she said, her eyes shining with pride. The organizing committee reviewed my original submission and notes. I'm representing the state in the national finals next month. I smiled, pulling her into a tight embrace. I never doubted you for a second. Summer leaned her head against my shoulder, watching the golden leaves drift down from the maple trees in the garden. Aubrey? Thank you for coming back. I stroked her hair softly, looking out at the broad, clear horizon stretching beyond the gates of her home. I will always come back, Summer, I said softly. No matter how far I go, nobody gets to hurt my sister.